Welcome to my class for class 8 supplementary reader. It so happened, chapter 2, children at work. Well, in this lesson, children at work, I would like to ask my children whether they have seen small children doing work for money. Yes, sure. We have seen many children working in the hotels, then we also see them begging for food. We also see them doing many odd jobs. Why do you think they earn money? We still have the answer that they earn money because they don't have their parents to look after them. Or maybe they are too poor, so they have to earn money for their livelihood. Now, do they get the chance to go to school? Well, surely not, I think. Such children would be never getting the opportunity to go to school. So, where do you think such children live? Actually, since they don't have their home, we'll find them sleeping or living anywhere, any shelter they would get. Sometimes we find them sleeping in the railway station. Sometimes we find them sleeping on the roadside, etc., etc. So we have understood the condition of such children who are very poor. Today, in this lesson, Children at Work, we will read about a little boy who actually leave his home to seek for better life. But he struggles in order to earn his livelihood. So let's come to the lesson, Children at Work. Now before we come to the lesson, let us know something about the writer, Gita Wolf, Anushka Ravishankar and Arijit Singh. Gita Wolf is an Indian publisher and author. She has written educational books as well as several picture books, adaptations of traditional folk tales from her native country. Some of her books are Mala, Child Art, The Very Hungry Lion, Trace, Antigone, The Legend of the Fish, Do Extra, and many more. Anushka Ravishankar. Anushka Ravishankar is an award-winning author of the children's book and co-founder of Duckbill Books, a publishing house. Arijit Singh. Arijit Singh is an Indian graphic artist and designer. His graphic novel River of Stories, published in 1994 by Kalparvix, is considered as the first graphic novel in India. Now coming to the lesson, Children at Work. Well, before we start the lesson, let us know some of the new words that has been used in this chapter. The first word is Bolting, which means arrived. Wobbly, which means unsteady. Glumly means sadly or gloomily. Making his head spin, a phrase. It means making him feel dizzy. Chutney, here chutney is not a type of food that we eat, but it means killed or crushed and ground into chutney. Squashy, that means crushed or juicy. Stomach squeeze him, another phrase we'll come across, and that means he was very hungry, his stomach twitched and pained. Gulp down, that means swallowed quickly without chewing. Tiffin, it's a snack, not a proper meal. Panic, which means very worried. Okay, now let's come to the lesson, Children at Work. When the Kanyakumari Express pulled in at Chennai Central, it took Value some time to get off. When he finally stood on the platform, his legs felt wobbly as if he was still on a moving train. "Oi, out of the way!" A porter went by with a loaded trolley. Value jumped aside. He sat on a bench on the platform, putting his small bundle down. In all his 11 years, he had never seen so many people except once a year at the fair in his village. People walked by, bumping into him with their suitcases. A voice announced something on the loudspeaker. Now here we see that Value, a little boy, he had boarded on to the Kanyakumari Express and pulled in at Chennai, which means pulled in means arrived. He boarded this Kanyakumari Express and he reached Chennai Central, which means Chennai Station. Now, on getting off from the train, Value felt very weary, tired, his legs wobbly. Wobbly means very weak, shaggy. Why? Because he still felt that he was moving on he was still moving and traveling in a moving train. When he got off and he was on the platform, he found the place so crowded. He had never seen such a huge number of people in his life. There, a porter went by and he came with a loaded trolley. He asked Value to be out of his way. Value was surprised and so he jumped aside. And then what did he do? He sat on a platform. He carried a small bundle with him. And in all his 11 years, this means that Value is now 11 years old. So in all his 11 years, he had never seen so many people. Why? Because he comes from a village, and in a village there are no other people, not much people in village. But usually a train station is a crowded place. Why? Because people come and go and travel to different long distances. Now, Value, he heard a loudspeaker, and in that loudspeaker he heard a voice announcing something which all to him is very strange, and it was a very first experience to him. Now let's come to the book again. Near him, a group of people sat on their luggage, looking at a TV hanging from the roof. The noise was terrible. Value put his head down on his knees, feeling miserable and exhausted. He had run away from his village 2 days ago, and for 2 days he had eaten nothing but some peanuts and a piece of jaggery. In his bundle, he carried a shirt, a towel, and a comb. Now we are already told that Value had left his village, and when leaving the village, he came with a small bundle. That shows that he doesn't have any penny with him. He was penniless. And he had left his home for 2 days. Since he had no money, he hadn't eaten anything for 2 days except a piece of jaggery and some peanuts. So in his bundle he carried a shirt, a towel, and a comb. And the voice, the announcing from the loudspeaker, the TV that is hanging in the platform for the people who were waiting for their turn, makes him feel miserable. And why? Because he was so exhausted, traveling for 2 days without food. He felt so tired and weak. Now let's come to the lesson. He had walked for most of the first day to Kannur and then went on the train to Chennai. Value had no money for a ticket, but luckily the ticket collector didn't come to the unreserved compartment. He had tried to sleep on the floor near the door. A group of men next to him had played cards and shouted all night. So on the first day he had to work, and after walking long distances to Kannur, he boarded on to the train to Chennai, and that also without a ticket. This had already shown that he traveled without a single penny with him. So he was lucky enough. Why? Because the ticket collector did not come to the unreserved compartment, and so he was lucky to reach Chennai without a single penny. In the train, he tried to sleep, but he was disturbed in his sleep by a group of men who was sitting and shouting and playing cards all night. So he couldn't take a good night's sleep in the travel also. Let's come to the lesson. "Hey, what new to town, eh?" called a rough voice. Value opened his eyes. There were a lot of people standing around, but nobody was looking at him. Here, "Hey," he turned around. Behind him was a girl around his own age, wearing a bunion that came down to her knees. Her hair was deep and brownish, and she had a huge sack on one shoulder. That means, while Value was sitting on the bench on the platform, feeling miserable and tired, and while hunger was pinching him, he heard a very loud voice, a rough voice calling out to him. He was surprised because he had come to a new place where he hadn't visited before, and he thought, who could that be that called to him? And when he looked around, he found a little girl of his own age. The girl looked strange. She wore a bunion. You see, bunion is usually a dress worn by men, but this little girl was wearing a bunion, which is a man's dress. And that bunion also did not fit right to her. It reaches down to her knees. Her hair was also very stiff and brownish. That shows that she did not care for her looks. She did not comb her hair properly. And this little girl had a sack on one shoulder. To the lesson, please. She was picking up dirty plastic cups from the floor and stuffing them into her sack. "Why is he calling me?" Value thought. "And why is the girl wearing a bunion? No need to stare stupidly. What's the name?" "Value," muttered Value, looking away. "So, Mr. Value," said the girl, looking at his bundle, "run away from home." Now, in this para, it indicates that the little girl was very smart. She could know easily from the way Value was behaving and in the way he was sitting there on the bench in the platform. She asked Value whether he had run away from home, and she even asked Value his name. Value told her that his name was Value. But Value's mind was filled with many questions, like why this little girl was wearing a bunion, then why is she calling out to him? Let's come to the lesson. Value did not answer. He did not want to tell some strange girl what he had done. He had run away because he couldn't stand his father beating him for one more day. His father would snatch away all the money Value and his sisters earned and spent it on drink. "Don't think I don't know. This place is full of children like you. So what are you going to do here? Become rich?" Now, this paragraph is filled with many questions. At first, when the little girl asked Value's name and when he was asked whether he had run away from home, Value was not ready to answer because the little girl was a stranger to him. He don't know that girl. So he thought to himself that it was not sensible to tell whatever he had done to a stranger. But the reason behind why Value ran away from home is that he could no longer bear the beatings of his father, who used to snatch the money that he and his sisters earned. Now, this little girl, she knew very well that Value had left his home and come to this new place, Chennai. So she asked Value whether he had come to become rich. Now let's come to the lesson. She sat down next to him. Value shifted away slightly. He felt hunger pinching him and pressed his stomach with a grimace. "Hungry?" asked the girl. "You won't get food by sitting here glumly, making faces. I can find some if you want." Now this means that the little girl wants to help Value. She sat down beside Value, but Value was uneasy. Why? Because a stranger coming near to him and sitting near him, so he shifted a little from the little girl. But still he was suffering from hunger. And so what did he do? He pressed his stomach with grimace, making faces. Grimace means making faces due to pain. The little girl realized how he was suffering, and so she asked whether he was hungry, whether he want to get food. She was ready to find some food for Value. She picked up her sack and started to walk away. Value stayed on the bench. What should he do? Should he follow the girl? Where was the girl going to take him? She was disappearing into the crowd, so he had to make up his mind quickly. "All right," he decided. "Anyway, I have no idea where to go." He jumped off and ran after her. She wasn't even looking back to see where he was. Now the little girl, after telling Value that she could find some food for Value, she walked away and disappeared into the crowd. Now Value thought to himself that the only place where he could get something to eat was following that little girl. So he got up from his bench and followed the little girl. He caught up with the girl as he was leaving the station. When they go to the road, Value found that the vehicles kept moving and never stopped for anyone. Smoke and dust flew at him from all the sides, making his head spin. They had to wait for a long time before they could find a gap to run through. Value kept hesitating, and the girl finally dragged him to the other side. Now, this shows that Value had never been used to such a crowd, such a traffic, since he comes from a village. The little girl was smart enough to pass through the heavy traffic, whereas Value was reluctant to move. But the little girl, what did she do? She dragged Value to the other side of the road, helping him to cross. "What do you think you are doing, grazing cows? If you stand around in the middle of the road like that, you will be chutney." Value's heart was still beating fast. He looked back at Central Station and the traffic speeding by. How had they managed to come through that? They walked along the side of the road under some huge signboards. Value looked up at the pictures: bunions, car tires, pans, a woman holding a box. The writing was all in English, so he did not know what it meant. Now here, after crossing the road, the little girl asked Value whether he thought that those vehicles that were plying onto the road were grazing cows, because he was reluctant to cross the road. The little girl even told Value that if he were to stand in the middle of the road like that, then he would become chutney. As I've already told you, chutney here means not the food. It means smash or run over by the vehicles. So the little girl scolded Value for behaving like that in the middle of the road. And then they walked along the side of the road. Value and the little girl walked along the road. Value could see signboards, and in that signboards there were pictures of bunions, car tires, pens, women holding a box, etc. These are all advertisement boards, and whatever it is written on the advertisement boards are all written in English, and he couldn't understand what was written. This shows that Value couldn't read English. The girl turned onto a wide bridge and walked off. Value stopped and peeped over the railing. Under him, the road ran into the city. In the distance, he could see huge buildings and towers and more roads. See that big building with the wall around it? If you are not careful, you'll soon be counting bars there. The girl grinned and pointed at a huge building. Now here, this little girl was very smart and wise. As Velu and the little girl walk along, she informed and warned Velu that he should be very careful if he had to survive in the city. He should be so careful that here be not be counting bars. Counting bars here refers to the prison. So if Velu is not careful while living there in the city, if he indulges himself in stealing and all, then surely he will land in prison. The little girl meant to say that Velu will surely land in prison. Now, coming to the relation, Velu squinted and read the Tamil sign, Central Jail. Why? I haven't done anything wrong. You don't have to do anything, just don't get caught. That's all. What does he mean? Velu still wondered. Meanwhile, the girl was already heading down the bridge with the sack on her shoulder. What was in it? He had seen her putting plastic cups into it in the station. Now, Velu squinted and read the Tamil sign. This sentence shows that Velu could read Tamil, though he couldn't read English. Now, when the little girl pointed out to that place where she meant that he would be counting bars if he doesn't behave well, Velu tried to read what was written in that building board, and he found that it was the Central Jail. Though at first he couldn't understand the real meaning of the girl's words, now he understood that if he indulges himself in some unfair or some stealing then he would surely land in prison. Then he had seen the little girl stuffing rags, picking up dirty plastics which are thrown away by people on the platforms. He showed this little girl stuffing all this rubbish into her sack which she carried in her shoulder. Now, what are you carrying in that bag? Things, bottles, paper. Velu wondered what she was doing with them, but he felt shy to ask any more questions. It was still morning. The sun blasted down on the tar and Velu's bare feet burned. It was not like walking on a mud road. He was soaked with sweat. He tried hard to work in the shade and keep up with the girl at the same time. She worked really fast. How far was the food? Now here in this paragraph, Velu was wondering what the little girl carried in her bag. He asked what other things she carried, and the girl said that it were bottle, paper, etc. But Velu couldn't understand what she was going to do with those things, those dirty things. But he was wise enough. He did not ask anything about the rubbish which she carried on her shoulder because he felt shy to ask any more questions. Then it was a very hot day. The sun was blasted down on the tar, means on the blacktop road. Tar here refers to the blacktop road. And Velu was walking barefoot. Barefoot means he doesn't wear shoes. He was walking without shoes. So it was really painful and hard for him to bear the heat walking on the tarted road. And he was sweating because of the heat of the sun as well as not eating for 2 days. He started wondering to himself how far was the food. After almost an hour of walking, they stopped in front of a big building. Sri Rajarajeshwari Prashna Kalyana Mandapan read Velu slowly. A sign with letters made of flowers said, Groom J.V. Vinayagan, Bride Rani. Value stared at the big cars parked outside. One of the cars had a flower garland and roses tapped onto it. The girl looked around, pulled one off quickly and stuck it in her hair. Come on, she said. Are we going to eat here? Asked Value, looking at the huge hall and the people inside. So, after walking for about an hour, Value and the little girl reached in front of a big building. And there it was written with decorated flowers, Sri Rajarajeshwari Prasanna Kalyana Mandapam. Value could read this easily because it was written in Tamil. And he came to know that it was a marriage wedding gathering going on there in that big mandapam. The little girl, since she was a girl, she liked flowers. What did she do? She pulled off one beautiful rose from one of the car that is meant for the bride to return back to her home. She pulled out that rose and stuck it onto her hair. And Value asked whether they are going to eat. He was expecting good food there since it was a marriage gathering. Let's see further. Hopes, said the girl, sticking her thumb under his nose. She led him behind the hall. There was a big garbage bin overflowing with rubbish. Two goats were standing on the pile, fighting for a banana leaf. A cloud of flies buzzed around their legs. There was a rotten smell in the air. The girl picked up a squashy banana and held it out to Value. Here's the food. Value was shocked. Are we going to eat their leftovers? Here, when Value asked whether they are going to get good food there since it is a marriage gathering, the little girl said, hope. You can hope. But she led Value behind the hall in a garbage bin where it was overflowing with rubbish. And there at the garbage bin, they found two goats that were fighting for a banana leaf. And there were lots of flies buzzing around. There were foul smell from the rotten leftovers. Value, she picked up a squashy banana. Squashy means already smashed, which is juicy. And she picked up that squashy banana and she gave it to Value to eat. Value was shocked to eat that leftover. So he asked whether they are going to eat leftovers and not good food. Gee, what do you think I am? A dog. I only take untouched food. Here, some more catch. She threw him a vada. Vada? Value looked at it with distress. Come on, hero. Eat it. You think I like this? I told you you'll find something to eat. Don't think I have money to buy food for you. You would better eat what you get until you have your own money. So when Value asked the little girl whether they are going to eat that leftover, the little girl, she handed over another food. She picked up a vada from the garbage bin and told Value that she hadn't had good money to buy food for him. He has to eat that food which she had found for him. At this, Value responded, asking the little girl that whether she thought him or whether she had taken him to be a dog. Value at first hesitated, but his stomach squeezed him again. He gulped down the banana and vada. His stomach felt better immediately. He could have eaten at least 10 times more, but the girl could find only one more banana which she ate herself. Now, when the little girl and Velu came to that garbage bin, though the garbage bin was overflowing with rubbish and leftovers, they couldn't find much food except 2 bananas and water. 1 banana the little girl had already taken for himself. It's too early, they have only eaten tiffin. If you are still hungry, you'll have to wait for them to finish lunch. You can wait if you want. I have to work. I'm going. Then she walked off. Velu panicked. He realized that if the girl left him, he had no idea where he was and what to do. It was better to stick to her. She seemed to know her way around. He ran after her again. Here it means that when Velu asked the little girl whether they are going to eat only that much, because he was feeling still hungry, his stomach still demanding more food. The little girl told Velu that he could wait till those gathering finishes their lunch. When they finish their lunch, he could get a little more to eat. So he could expect a little more leftovers. And she went away telling Velu that she couldn't waste her time because she has to earn money. But Velu had, being a new place, she thought to himself that it would be wise to stick to her since the little girl knows the place around. And so he ran after her, neglecting the food that he would get if he had to stay there for longer. "Hey," he called. He didn't even know the girl's name. "Hey, what is your name?" he asked, hurrying behind her. She stopped and turned around. "Oh, so you have been following me around without even knowing my name? Jaya, I'm not following you." "What then? Who got you food? Can I come with you? Where are you going? Come if you want. This bag is full. I have to go home to get another one." Here, Velu is filled with lots of questions, and the little girl, when she was called A without calling a name, she asked Velu that Velu was still following her without knowing her name. She told Velu that her name is Jaya so that Velu could call her name Jaya. And Velu asked whether he could come follow him because he was new to the place. The girl said if Velu is ready to follow, he can come. And at the moment, she was to go back to her home because she has to leave the bag which was full of those rags. And so she said she was going or moving towards her home. Velu stared. This was a canal. Near some puddles of water was a row of the strangest hut he had ever seen. They were built out of all sorts of things: metal seats, tires, brakes, wood and plastic. They stood crookedly and looked as if they would fall any moment. "Is this where you live? These houses are strange," said Velu. "In our village, the houses are made of mud and palm leaves." Now, Velu wondered on reaching the little girl Jaya's house because he showed a lot of difference in the type of house where Jaya lived and the type of house which he found in his village. In his village, he found the houses are all made of mud and palm leaves. But here, where Jaya lived, it was made out of all sorts of things like metal seats, tires, brakes, wood and plastic. And even the house do not stand straight. They seem so crooked that he felt that it would fall down any moment. Jaya went around to one of the huts and dumped her sack outside. Then She picked up an empty one. Let's go. She turned to Value and gave him a soph. At least help me now. Here, wear these and come with me. She threw him a pair of old shoes without laces and pushed a shack and a stick into his hands. Value was confused. What work did she want him to do with these things? Well, when Value was still confused, coming to Jaya's place, finding the difference of the houses, the type of houses there and the type of house in each village. While he was standing confused, Jaya handed out to him a pair of shoes, knowing the fact that Value might be feeling very hard to walk on the heated tar barefooted. And then she also handed out to him a shack and a stick, which Value still wondered and confused what to do with those things given to her. The only work she had done was on the landowner's farm, weeding and taking cows out to graze. Are there any farms in the city? He asked Jaya. She laughed and thumped her stick on the ground. Farms? There are no farmers here. We are rat pickers. Rat pickers? She might say, full of things I collected. Collected? From where? Asked Value. From rubbish bins. Where else? Now, when Value was handed with the sack and the stake, he was confused because he find it very strange to work and still he don't know how to work, what are the things he must collect. Because in his village, he worked in a farm, in a landowner's farm, and while working in the farm, he did the work of weeding and he took out the cows to graze. Weeding means pulling out the grass from the fields and digging like. So he wanted to do that type of work which he worked in his village. So he asked Jaya whether there are any farms in the city so that he could work there. But Jaya was surprised to hear about farms in the big city, and so she told Value that there are no farms in the city and she is a rat picker, and being a rat picker means she has to go to the rubbish bins and collect plastic bottles, then cups, paper, etc., which she has to sell them and earn money. You collect rubbish? Value had never heard of such a thing. Hey, blockhead, it's not any rubbish, only plastic, paper, glass, such things. We sell it to Jambazar Jagu. Value was puzzled. He had heard of people throwing away rubbish, but why would anyone want to buy rubbish? Who's Jambazar Jagu? Why is he buying all these things? You think he buys it for show? He sells it to a factory. Come on, I don't have time to waste like you. So here, when Value was to work like a rat picker, like Jaya herself, he was still confused, and so he asked Jaya what are the things to be picked up. Jaya said that she picked up paper, plastic, then bottles, etc. And these things which she picked up, she had to sell it to the Jambazar Jagu. So when Value heard the name Jambazar Jagu, he was again surprised because he hadn't heard such name before. So he asked Jaya, who is this Jambazar Jagu? So Jaya explained that Jambazar Jagu is a junk shopkeeper, that she had to sell all those rubbish that she picked up to the Jambazar Jagu, and that Jambazar Jagu, who is the junk shopkeeper, will sell it to the factory for recycling. In this way, she used to earn her living. So she asked Value to join her so that he also could earn money like her. So she said that she hasn't time to waste. Value did not move. He hadn't run away and come to this new place to dig through garbage bins. Jaya poked at him with her stick. "Look here," she shouted. "If anyone gets there before us, we don't get anything. Don't just stand there posing. Big hero, I'm trying to help you. Who filled your stomach today?" Value scratched his head and sighed. "I'll do it for now," he thought, until I find a better job. So, though Willie was unwilling to work, going to the rubbish, searching for those dirty things, though he was unwilling to work, he was compelled to do, because he had no other means of earning money coming to the big city. And also he couldn't find farms where he could work peacefully. So he had to follow, and he had to do the work which the little girl Jaya wanted him to do. So with this we have come to the end of today's lesson. Now this lesson, Children at Work, gives us a very beautiful message, and it says that if we leave our home, then we will surely and naturally be fell into sudden unexpected, sudden odd situation, and that our home is the best place that God has ever given us, and it is the safest and the happiest place in the world. Thank you. Have a nice day.